Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Google Classroom for all users. So some of you have mentioned to me already that have my phone number that you are having a challenging time entering the code that we have. So actually then what I'm going to do right now is demonstrate how to enter it, how to join a class. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to how to join a class. So I'm going to show you how to add students and how to join a classroom yourself. So I'm going to share my screen with you and then show you the code one more time to join our class, and then we'll get started. All right, so here we go. I'm going to present my screen. All right, so this is what's happening now. I am now on the classroom main page where you can get to just by typing in classroom.google.com, or you can go through your email or find any Google app where they have the waffles on the right hand side and click on the classroom link, and that will take you to Google Classroom. The next step is to click the plus button on the right hand side and then click join class. Here, you'll see there's a box on the page that says class code. So once again, go to classroom.google.com or go to the app using the waffle. Click plus, click join class, and then right in the middle of the page, you'll see class code. Now, you need the class code. So I'm going to click on the class. And as a teacher, if you have kids in front of you, you can either go to the banner, which is at the top of your page, click the square next to the code to project that code. You can copy the invite link and email it to all of your students if you'd like. I'm going to leave this here for a second. The other way you can add students is adding them manually, and I'll show you that in a second. And I hope everyone's had a great summer this summer. The weather's been fantastic. Okay. Going to give that a couple more seconds, and then we're going to move on to our agenda for today. Okay, I'm going to move on to our agenda for the day. So I've chosen to live stream this class instead of doing a regular Google Meet because there are so many of you guys in this class. There are currently 112 members of the Google Classroom that I've set up, and I believe 150 of you have signed up for this class alone. A regular Google Meet can hold up to 250 people, but it gets really, really laggy, and I decided that this is probably a more efficient way to present to you. So because of that, in the Google Classroom, on the classwork tab, I put a questions box. So if you have questions throughout my presentation, go ahead and feel free to ask them there, because that's where I'll go. And I probably won't stop during my presentation to answer your questions, but I will go back into the questions after the presentation and answer your questions to the best of my ability. And if I can't answer them, I'll find resources that can help you answer them. All right, so our agenda for today. This is what you're going to learn. We're going to talk about what Google Classroom is. We're going to set up a Google Classroom. I'm going to show you how to navigate a Google Classroom, the menus and settings, the stream, classwork, people, grades. We're going to talk about best practices. And I feel like out of everything that you should take away from my presentation today, the best practices is the most important piece, because with remote teaching on Wednesdays for a whole district, it's important to use a tool like Google Classroom to communicate with families, not just students, but with parents too, because they will be looking over hopefully they'll be looking over their child's shoulder and trying to get an idea of what to expect in their class. So what I'm going to show you today is how to set up a classroom in a way that can help parents and students navigate the page efficiently and also keep yourself organized at the same time. And then finally, a couple Google Classroom add-ons that I've learned about recently. One being a grade transfer that can transfer grades from Google Classroom to Aspen, which is such an awesome thing. And I'm so excited about it. I haven't had a chance to play with it because one, I don't have students. And two, I learned about it like 2 weeks ago. So I haven't had a chance to play with it just yet. So hopefully you guys get a chance to do that. All right. So let's get started. Okay, so what is Google Classroom? Google Classroom is known as a learning management system. Its basic job is to distribute content to all of your students by creating assignments and posting announcements. It's also a collaborative tool that allows you to create opportunities for your students to collaborate and to communicate with each other within Classroom. Other learning management systems are maybe things like, if you've heard of them, Schoology or Seesaw or something like that, that are similar with what they're supposed to do, but not exactly like Google Classroom. So things that you should know about Google Classroom. Number one, they're available in both education and your personal account. So if you feel like making up a Google Classroom for like a party or something like that, and you have a personal Gmail, you can use Classroom there too. It's actually a pretty versatile tool. It can be used at any grade level, depending on the students and the teachers' experience with the use of technology and their skill levels. But pretty much anyone can use it. I used it last spring with my daughter in her preschool. Obviously, she can't read, but we were able to like sit down together and look at pictures and look at assignments that her preschool teacher had posted for her. To make Google Classroom work most efficiently, you have to use Google Chrome. Other browsers won't work very well, and it might slow up the process of actually posting things. On that note, things that you post, Google Classroom, you can post anything really, any type of file. But for your students, the things that work best, especially if you want them to answer worksheets or to do something on a doc, is to use Google Docs and not Microsoft within an assignment. Microsoft, it just causes a lot of extra steps for the student to be able to complete the assignment. If you just upload a doc for them, things go nice and smooth. There's also a mobile app that has notifications for Google Classroom. And some students, when I was helping out some kids in the spring, were just using the mobile app. So just you have to keep that in mind when you're setting things up. All right. So first step, how to actually set up your Google Classroom. So I'm going to go back to our main menu. And this is your home screen for Google Classroom. On the home screen, if you've created classes, all your classes are going to be listed there. You can enter any of the classes just by clicking on the title of the class, and that should open up the class for you. The next thing that you have on this page is a review button. This is new. Actually, when I wrote this class a couple days ago, this to review wasn't located here. It was located somewhere else. But this button is pretty cool. What you can do is just click on it and it tells you assignments that you need to grade or assignments that you haven't graded. So it kind of helps keep you organized. You also have a link to a calendar. every single time you create a Google Classroom, it creates a new calendar in your calendar. So this is just a way for you to kind of see what you've assigned for the week. Your students also have the same calendar. The other thing that you have on this page is your plus. This is where you join the classes or create a class. And I'll get to that in one more second. The other thing you have, and in all Google tools, by the way, you have two types of menus. You've got the 3-line menu or you've got the 3-dot menu. Both have options for different types of settings. So on the home page for Google Classroom, the 3-line menu has the calendar button and the review button. This used to be located at the bottom. It has all of the classes that you've created. It has a link to your archived classes. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And then you have your settings. If you click on settings, there's not much here to actually manage, except this one very important piece, which is your email notifications. So Google Classroom will send you a notification every single time something updates or something changes in Google Classroom, or anytime someone posts a comment. It gets very overwhelming, especially if you have several sections of one class. So I keep mine shut off because I know that I set up a schedule for myself to go into my classrooms and to check them. I don't like to get too many emails, so I keep that off. Students can also do this, and if you would like to show your students how to do this, they can also shut off email notifications. But according to some feedback from a parent and a student, they decided to keep it on just so they could keep track of when assignments were coming up and when things were due or anytime a teacher posted something. So it's kind of like a little reminder. So if you have students that seem to get overwhelmed by the emails and are good about going into Classroom to check it, go ahead and teach them to do this. If you have students where you actually want them to get the notifications in their email, then don't show them this piece just yet. They'll figure it out anyway at some point, but don't show it to them if you don't want them to. All right, now how to start a class. So your first step in creating a class is clicking the little plus in the upper right-hand side. And then you just click Create Class. When you are here, the only thing that's required is to put down the class name. So if you're teaching if you have, let's say, a first grade class, you can just put Mrs. Smith's first grade class. And that's all you have to put. I would recommend that try to make this class name as clear as possible for your students and your parents. If you just put math, they're not going to have a clue. Like, parents aren't going to have a clue what math class it would be. So I would put the teacher's name. Maybe if you gave your class a specific identifier. So at the Marshall, they have colors for every class. So you could put red math or something like that, just to make sure the kids know what they're clicking on. Because sometimes when I look over kids' shoulders and I see all their classrooms, some teachers don't archive their classes. So they end up having 2 or 3 math classes or something like that. And they have to remember which math class they're using for that year. And the only way to get rid of it is for that student to actually unenroll in the class. And not all of them know how to do that. These other options, section, subject, and room, are totally up to you whether you want to put that on there or not. I typically don't fill those in whenever I create a classroom, just because I think it's clear enough. If I make a really good title for my class name, I'm all set. All right. Once you do that, create. Sometimes it takes a couple seconds for the class to actually kind of show up. There's a lot going on there. All right. So when your class is created, you have the banner at the top. You have your invite code, which I showed you before. You just click the plus, and then you can project it on the screen, or you can click a copy invite link, invite all your students through email, or put it on a slide like I did for you guys. You have on your stream, it gives you a place where you can post announcements. I'm going to show you settings in a minute where you can actually shut that off, where students can post announcements. Also, this is where it posts notifications that assignments are coming up. That's another personal preference thing. I personally shut it off because I got some feedback from some parents that said the notifications on the stream are a little overwhelming and they never really knew where to look. So that's just a preference thing, but I'll show you what I mean in a minute for that. So that's your stream. Stream has not much going on. You can change your banner by clicking select theme or uploading a photo. The photo, I've always had a little bit of a challenge. You have to have a specific size to get the correct photo for your banner. So that's up to you. Theme is pretty easy. You just click select theme and it gives you some different categories that you can choose. The next tab is your classwork tab. This is where all of the magic happens. This is where you're going to post assignments, materials, all sorts of other things on here. You'll also notice that you have a link to a Google Meet because you can set up meets through Google Classroom. And if you've signed up for my Google Meet class, I will be talking more about that in detail there. Once again, you have another link to your calendar to show what assignments are coming up or what you've assigned to students for this particular class. And then you have a Drive folder. Whenever you create a Google Classroom, it automatically creates a folder for that class inside of a folder called Classroom in your Google Drive. And then it will make individual folders within that class for each assignment that you create, which is pretty nice. So like, let's say you decide to archive this class and you forget about something and you go into your classroom folder, you can actually go back and find all of the old materials and student assignments. You can actually find some exemplars in there too that you can use later on. Whenever you want to create anything on the classwork page, you're going to click the create button. Here is a list of all of the different types of things that you can create. Assignments, quiz assignments, questions, materials, posts. Kami assignment is an add-on that you need that if you want to use it, which I'll be showing in my Kami class later today, I believe. But it's an add-on that you can add and create assignments using PDFs, editable PDFs within the class. One of my favorite tools here is the reuse post. This is awesome because occasionally I will screw up and make the wrong assignment, and then I'll post it to all of my classes and then realize I did it wrong. So I'll have to go back and delete them, but then I just click reuse post and it can edit that post and then post them back to all my classes to make sure it's the correct assignment. Down here is topic. This is how you keep yourself organized, and I'll show you more about that in a second. People. So this is another way that you can add students to your class. So I've showed you the code in the banner, how you can either email it or just project it onto a screen. You can click the plus to invite students this way. You can send them a code directly just by clicking these little squares, which allows you to copy an invite link and email that to them. Or you can type in every single student's email and then click invite. I have to tell you, the fastest way to get students added to your Google Classroom is to project the code. And since our first day with students is a remote day and you'll be meeting with them via Google Meet, I would recommend just say join classroom, project that code in that Google Meet and have your students join that way. It's the easiest way. For the little guys though, I would recommend adding their emails. All right, then finally you have your grades tab. There's a little setup to get this working, but you can actually keep a grade book within Google Classroom. And with that new extension that's out there, which is available in the Google Classroom that I had you guys join, you can take those grades and put them directly into directly into Aspen. But I would recommend setting it up exactly how your Aspen gradebook is set up to make it work correctly. The other button at the top of the screen is your settings button. So once again, you see the name of your class. If you decide to fill in any of these other blanks, those will be filled in as well. This is the beef, the major part of your Google Classroom. These settings are what is going to make your classroom run efficiently. First of all, invite codes. So right now it says enabled. If I click here, it will say disable or reset. So occasionally, and invite you, if you want to reuse a Google Classroom, which you can do, kids will still have codes from later on. I've only maybe seen this once in like the 5 years I've been playing around with Google Classroom, where a kid like invites themselves back into your classroom. So if that you get some little bit of troublemakers, you can actually disable or reset the Google Classroom code to make sure that those kids that were actually wreaking havoc in your Google Classroom cannot do that anymore. You get your invite get link again right here. You get your class view code again right here. So they make it pretty easy to have students join. They just put it in so many different places. That's kind of hard to not know where to go to find those. Next is your stream. So like I was saying before, your stream can get quite messy, and there's no way to really organize your stream well. So right here, and as of right now, if I were to invite students to this, they could comment and post. So teaching middle school, you probably know that they're going to write the silliest things a billion times over and over and over again and have conversations on the stream, because that's what they do. So before I even launch my Google Classroom to my classes, I go to where it says only teachers can post and comment. Now, let's say I want them to comment, then I can go back at any point in time and change it to students can only comment. That way, if I want to have a lively conversation on the stream, I can do that. But most of the time, I just leave that as only teachers can post and comment in the stream, because there are other features that can happen in the classwork tab that will allow students to interact with each other on assignments. Classwork on the stream. This is feedback from families, and this is one of those best practices thing. I would recommend hiding notifications, just because the first thing that students see when they log into Google Classroom is the stream, and they'll see all of those posts that you've posted something, and they won't know what to look at first. So if you hide those notifications, that won't cause any confusion among your students. So you should be definitely hiding them. So we just want to keep that first page as clean and neat as possible, and save that space just for your announcements to your class. The deleted items can be really helpful. I usually keep this off because I don't want the extra stuff showing up when I'm editing or adding things to my Google Classroom classwork tab. But this could be really helpful if you've deleted something and you want to go back and see what you've deleted. You can turn it back on and see what you've done. And then guardians will often be added, guardians have an option to be added to see what their kids have been doing in the class. So what the Guardian summary is it basically shows what the kid has passed in and what they haven't passed in. Once a week, it usually sends an email. Sometimes parents have already signed up to get Guardian summaries. So when you've added kids, you'll notice that their parent's email is already attached to their name, and that they'll be getting that weekly email. So it's kind of a nice little thing. I don't know how many parents look at it. I personally don't have a lot of experience with that piece, but it's a nice thing to have. Then Google Meet through Classroom. As I said, if you're going to take my Google Meet class later, that's basically, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but you can create a secure Google Meet right inside your Google Classroom. And then grading. This is where you're going to set up your gradebook, where you can set up overall grade calculation, where you can make it weighted by category or just total points. You can show the overall grades to students just by toggling this little switch, and you can add your grade categories right down there. When you're all done your settings, click save, and the settings will be good to go. Whew, okay, that's a lot. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back over to the classroom that you guys all joined, called Test Class. I'm going to take a sip of tea and get my voice going, and I'm going to take a look at your questions. Okay, no questions. That's okay. I hope you're all doing well. That's the downside to this live streaming thing is I can't see or hear you guys. So I don't know what's happening yet for you. All right. So I'm going to talk now about creating an assignment. So to create an assignment, you just click the create button like I showed you before. You click create assignment. And this is the assignment box. The only required field in the whole thing is the title. However, I wouldn't recommend just putting a title of the assignment. I definitely recommend putting instructions and those types of things too. So there's title. I'll put test assignment. Please read directions carefully. Next, down here, you have your add button. So when you add something to an assignment, you can add anything at all. So you can add something from your Google Drive, whether it's like a sound file, video file, a doc, a spreadsheet, whatever. You can add whatever's in your Google Drive to the assignment. So I'm just going to click Google Drive. If you've never used it before, it's going to ask you to give permissions and you just accept those. I'm going to add this presentation. You can add, I can upload a file from my computer. Click upload, browse. There we go. That's added. It's a PowerPoint. I can add a YouTube video just by clicking YouTube and then doing a little search, or just add the URL for the YouTube video. And then links. The other thing you can do is you can actually create any type of these Google apps directly in Google Classroom just by clicking on this, and then it will automatically open up a doc for you to edit. When you create an assignment and you want kids to be able to edit the file on their own, this drop-down menu is super important. And this one I often sometimes forget to actually do myself. So when you click that, right now it defaults to students can view file. And if you have like a material or a resource that you want the kids just to read, leave it at view file, and that way kids can go and read it and not do anything to it. Students can edit file. What this means is every single student in that class can edit the same document. So there are ways to create groups within assignments, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But be careful with that one. If you don't want 25 kids editing one document, then I would not recommend that one at all. The one that is most important and to make sure that every kid gets their own copy is the make a copy for each student. That way, when you go to assign this, and in a second, you're all going to get a copy of this assignment, everyone's got their own document, and you can actually look at that individual document. Over here, you can set up for who is going to get the assignment. So right now, it's just for my test class. And I can check off that I want it in Mrs. Fitz computers too. So that way 2 classes get that same assignment. So if you teach multiple sections of one class, you can assign that to multiple sections. I'm going to uncheck Mrs. Fitz computers because I want to show you how to create a group. So right now there's like 127 people in this class, Google Classroom. If I want to assign this to multiple students, I just click here, and then I can uncheck and then check off 4 students to get this one assignment, and they'll get, they'll be able to just, only 4 kids are going to be able to work on this one thing. But I'm going to check off everybody because I want to show you what it looks like to grade it. Next, you can assign points. You can either give it 100 points, or you can make it ungraded. So it could just be something that they get from you that you want them to work on, but you're not going to grade it just yet. Maybe you want it's a rough draft of something. Next, you can set up a due date and a time, which is crazy. Then you can give it a topic. I'm going to say week 5 for mine. It's one I set up before, and I'll explain that to you more in a second. The other thing you can do right here is you can actually create a rubric to grade the assignment. You can either create one directly here, reuse a rubric, or import one that you've already created in Google Sheets. So basically how this works is you fill in the criterion description for each part of the assignment, and then you can add the different levels, like if proficient, emerging, needs improvement, or something like that. And then you can add another piece of criterion. So you can actually add multiple levels of criterion for the rubric. And you can make it ascending or descending. When you're done, you just click save. I'm actually going to cancel that. All right, and when you're all set, checked it over, make sure it looks good, you can assign it. If you want it to be directly published, you just click the assign button and let it go. Or let's say you want to get ahead. You can schedule the assignment to come out later on. You can save it as a draft. You can throw it away altogether. But I like the scheduling feature because sometimes I like to get multiple things done all at the same time. And I'll know that each assignment's going to come out on a Monday of a class. So some of my adult professional development classes, I've done that for. I'm just going to click assign so you guys can see what it looks like on your end as a student. And sometimes it takes a second because there are a lot of students in this class. So it's creating a different doc for every single one of you guys. Ooh, excellent. All right, so I put this under one of the topics. There it is, test assignment. Now, let's say you want to grade the assignment. All you have to do is when you click on the assignment, you'll see that right now I have 0 turned in because nobody's turned it in. I just posted it. I have 133 people assigned to that assignment. I can click view assignment, and that will open the assignment into my grading window. And you'll see that everyone has something assigned to them. When I open up the window to grade, this is what happens. It gives you a copy of the document that they're working on. It shows you the name of the student that you're grading. It will show you the history of the document so you can actually see when the kid has actually worked on something. It gives you the option to give some feedback. It defaults to this suggesting mode. I always put it to editing because the suggesting puts little green lines under everything and it drives me crazy. So I just put editing and I'll highlight and comment on someone's work. The other thing that you can do from this page is navigate between students, either by clicking the arrow, or you can click on the down arrow and see all of the students in the class. You can sort by last name, first name, or the status of the assignment. So let's say some people have handed it in. You can actually sort it by who's turned in the assignment and who hasn't turned in the assignment. I love the grading feature in Google Classroom. At first, I was kind of reluctant to grade things on a computer because there's just something satisfying about using a pen and circling and making comments. But this feature changed my mind altogether. I absolutely love it. The other thing that you can do, if it lets me do it, is that you used to be able to give you a bank of comments. Yeah, that's right here. So right here, you can actually create comments that you would give to students, like common comments like, great job. And then click add. And now this is in your comment bank. So let's say I wanted to give the student the feedback. I just go over here, click copy to copy to clipboard, and then click paste. And there it is. It's the comments already made on the document. But as I said, this right now it's in suggesting mode and not editing mode. So it has the green lines under it for, so that's pretty cool. So you don't have to keep writing the same comments over and over. And you can tell I was teaching an Excel or a spreadsheet class. So all my comments are about spreadsheets. All right, so that is an assignment. Hope you guys are doing all right out there. The next thing I want to show you guys is quiz assignment. So quiz assignment's pretty cool. It's basically the same idea as what I just showed you with the other assignment. However, the difference is that it creates a Google form for you, and there's your quiz. Now, the downside to this, and this is just what I found, and so I could be wrong when I say this next thing, is it doesn't make a separate quiz for every class. So I could be wrong. I will look it up and I will find out. And if I find an answer that says I'm wrong, I will post that in this classroom to communicate with you. So that is a downside. However, this quiz is saved to your Google Drive, and you could just make a copy and assign it to your other classes. And to make a copy of a quiz, it's pretty simple. You just click the three little dots, and click make a copy, and it will make a copy of that quiz. Now, why would you want to make multiple copies of a quiz? Just for grading purposes, it just makes it much easier, I think, if you make a different quiz for each section. But that, again, is just a preference thing. Next, how are we doing on time? Okay, I got to go a little faster. The next thing I wanted to show you is the question feature. So some of you have already taken advantage of this, which is awesome. So over my years of being a technology coach or even the techie social studies teacher, I always had people ask me, how can I have students blog in my class? And there's a lot of great bloggers out there for students that are really well protected, but they all cost a lot of money. This is a way that your students can actually blog in a way where they can answer the question and then comment back and forth to each other in the classroom. And you can see that right here at the bottom with the settings, you can keep this box. Students can reply to each other. So if you want them to have a conversation online in your classroom, just keep that box checked, and then they can basically be writing a post and they're responding to each other's posts. You can also allow them to edit their answers too. I like to do that just because, they can, after reading a couple of responses, they may change their mind about what they wrote. And then the other piece is material. This is where if you have like a reading or a video that you want them to have access to, I would just call it a material and then give them that. Another piece of advice for best practices is that a material is not an assignment. I'm going to be very clear with that. A material is not an assignment. It is not something you're going to grade. It's just something that you're giving the students to learn from, whether it's a video that you make for them or something you find from YouTube or reading or a piece of music you want them to listen to. It's just a resource. It's not an assignment. Some teachers over the spring were using material as assignments, and some parents got really kind of confused about that, and kids too. So if you want to grade something, you want kids to pass something in, always keep it as an assignment. Do not set it as a material. All right, now, reuse posts. In my survey I sent out that some of you answered, a lot of you mentioned that you'd never used reuse post. I absolutely love this feature because I make mistakes all the time. And when I make mistakes, I'll delete the assignment, and then after posting it to classes, I'm like, oh crap, I wanted to use that. So what reuse post does is it allows you to find assignments that you have used, and then just click it and click reuse. Next thing that happens is it allows you to actually edit that assignment. Maybe make some changes, do the fixes that you need to do, and then you can post it to your class, which is awesome. And you notice here that it's actually saved as a draft. I'm going to just go to the three dots on the right and click delete and make that go away. But it's a lifesaver, especially if you've gone to all of the work to create something and then you do something wrong and you've posted it all to all your classes. Reusing post allows you to bring that assignment back and reuse it, which is awesome. Also, if you've had an assignment in the past and you don't really quite remember what it is, the reuse post button will take you can pull in old assignments from old classes too. It's so cool. All right, now let's talk a little bit about etiquette or best practices. So I'm going to go back to my presentation. So Mr. Garris, Tony, got an email from a parent last spring, and it was probably one of the best emails I've ever read from a parent. It had the best suggestions for how to help parents and students navigate Google Classroom. And I actually wrote a post about it, and I've linked that post in this classroom for you. And basically, in short, what the parent said was, number one, control your stream. So keep it neat and tidy. Shut off those notifications so you don't have a lot of confusion about what kids are expected to do. Create your topics to stay organized, and I'll talk about that in 1 second. So basically, use topics to make sure that it's easy to navigate each week within Google Classroom. Since we are going to be doing a remote day on Wednesdays, this is a good way to kind of like keep your kids all cohesive on one day, and you can call it remote day learning, and then give a list of what the remote day learning is. And as I said, I'll talk more about that in a second. Next, materials are not resources, are resources, not assignments. So I already explained that. I'm not going to go over that again. And then next thing is stay consistent with naming conventions, which means that like if you call something by the day of the week and then the name of the assignment, stick with that throughout the whole entire year. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So in this test class that I created, I gave you kind of like a little kind of snapshot of what this can look like in your Google Classroom. So I called this topic week 7 and then put the date of the week and then the topic for the week. So that way, like when you were learning about animal cells, people will know that this week 7 was when you learned about animal cells. Then what I did is I labeled each assignment within that week, the day of the week, and then put the name of the assignment. When you first create a lot of assignments, it's going to put it in a weird order. The cool thing about Google Classroom is you can actually pick and drag and drop where assignments are listed. The other thing that happens when you create topics is it puts a menu over here on the left side of the page where you can just click on the week for that assignment and it will just show you everything that's happening for that week. Just makes it much more simple to navigate, and people know where to look to find things that you have assigned them for that week. So keeping your classroom clean, keeping the classroom organized, keeping the topics clear, and the naming conventions consistent will help families really navigate through the assignments. All right, I'm going to show you one more thing from a student point of view that is kind of helpful for them as well as you, and that's a little bit about the grading. I'm not going to go into the grade book today because that's another hour worth of stuff, but I recommend playing around with it. So I'm going to switch over and become a student for a second. Okay, so classwork. All right, now up here at the top of the page, and this is something you'll want to point out to your students, it has a view your work link. On the left side of the page, the students are going to see all of their assignments, what's been assigned, what's been returned, and what's been missing. So they can actually go in here and figure out if you're keeping up with the grading, they can keep themselves organized with what they've passed in, which I love. And I've actually, when I first discovered this, I was teaching 7th grade computers, and I was like, kids were like, what am I missing? I'm like, go into Classroom and click on that tab to see what you're missing to make sure that you've passed everything in. Super, super helpful and super cool. So that's under the student. So right now I'm a student. And this student has been lent out to a lot of people, so he's got a lot of classrooms. All right, so I'm going to now go back in and take a look at what your questions are. I'll hopefully answer a couple. So the first question from Laura is the Google Meet link under invite codes. Does that create a standing Google Meet? It does. It's one Google Meet. The cool thing about it is that it can be turned off and turned on so that that link goes away if you want it to go away. And I'm going to actually explain more about that in my ins and outs of Google Meet class because we've only got about 10 minutes left here today. How do I go to the live stream? So that link was on the doc that I shared with, that Jill shared out with everybody. There was a link there. The best way to create an assignment and assign it to one cohort, but then assign it to the next cohort 2 days later. That's where you would reuse that post. So, so when I showed you guys that feature, I'm going to go back to the page for reusing post. If you assign that assignment to a group of kids, and then 2 days later you want to do the same thing, you can actually go to reuse post, choose that assignment, and assign it to the next group of kids that need to get that same assignment. It's pretty cool. Yes, you can schedule for multiple classes. So I'm under Chris's question. So when you create the assignments and you'd go to schedule where it says classes, you check off all of the classes you want to schedule that post for. Thank you, Kayleen. I almost forgot to show that to you guys. So how do we get rid of or archive our classes? So the thing with Google Classroom is you can never really get rid of all your classes, but you can archive them. So I'm going to click on classes. So I'm back to all of my main classes. And I can't really archive any of these because I've promised that the teachers that I would keep them open, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So actually, I'll do this one. So the 3 little dots, the other type of Google menu that we have, you click those 3 dots and you click archive. Then what happens is it doesn't go away. You just can't see it anymore. If you want to bring it back, you click archived classes, and they have like little lines through the banners. You can just click the 3 little dots, click move. So that's not what I wanted. That's a new feature. I hate it when they have new features when I'm teaching classes. You can see that class, and then right here at the bottom of the page, it will say restore, and it allows you to restore that class so you can bring it back. So it never goes away. The other really cool thing that you can do here is you can actually copy a class to make another class. And I actually need to copy this class because I'm teaching another couple sections of this. So if you want to make the same class exactly the same with the exact same assignments for next year, just clear out the students. You don't have to go and archive the class. You can just click these 3 little dots, click copy, and it will create an exact replica of the class without any students assigned to it. And you can just go in and edit it and clean it up to make it work the way you want to. And of course, it's taking forever, so I'm going to go into the student part. So Ruth, to answer your question, can I create folders for units or themes and add all the documents related to that folder? You can, and you can add folders to Classroom, but just think about how you want your students and families to navigate the page. So, as I said, you can definitely do that, but make sure that it's easy to navigate when you do it. All right, I'm on Rachel's question. If you were to assign selected students, will they be the only ones who can see it, or does the whole class? No. If you just say like these four kids get this one assignment, those are the only four kids that are going to see that assignment. I actually really liked it. I used it. So in my computer class, I made it self-paced for the kids. And the kids passed an assignment. I check it off, make sure they did it correctly. And then, so there's a bunch of kids that were accelerated in the class. So they needed enrichment activities. So what I ended up doing at the end was I created a bunch of enrichment stuff and only assigned it to those 4 or 5 kids that were pretty advanced in my computer class. So it was pretty cool. And none of the other kids saw the assignments. Is there any handouts? Why, yes, Andrea, there is. If you go into the classwork tab of this classroom, there are 4 things, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. Oh, sorry, nope, it's on the stream on this one. So, got some commenting going on. Down here, I said materials for classroom for all users. I put 4 things in here for you. I put the monthly tech musings. That's where I had the best practices information. This Google Classroom cheat sheet, pretty much everything I have gone over today is on there. It's made by Casey Bell of Shake Up Learning. If you read any Google blog, read Casey's. It is phenomenal. I think I know everything, and then I go into her blog and I learn 10 more things. And she's also got these really cool 5-minute quick tips for using Google. Oh, she's awesome. But this, literally everything I've talked about with you guys is all in that document. Take it, save it to your drive. It will be a lifesaver when you're really wanting to get into some of the detail. And then the other 2 things I've put on this are grade transfer and the Kami extension. So grade transfer, as I said, is a new thing to me, but I had to share it with you guys because if you're doing grading in Classroom and then you have to go and enter it into Aspen, it can be kind of cumbersome, but if it can be moved by itself, it would be really awesome. And there's some really, really good reviews on this app. So that's why I put it out there without trying it. If the reviews weren't as good as they were, I wouldn't have mentioned it. And then Kami, that's for a class I'm teaching later today, is awesome. And so I put that extension there too. So if you wanted to get started using that and exploring that a little bit, I put that there. All right. Will students have a class workshop for Google Classroom? Nope, the students will not have a class or workshop for Google Classroom. You need to be the one to teach them how it's set up for you. So kids, I believe some kids are even like 3rd, 4th grade where they're starting to use Google Classroom. Some may even be younger. As I said, it's appropriate for whatever the skill level is of the students. So I was using Google Classroom with my daughter, but I was reading and she was the one doing the work last spring, and she's 4. She was 3 at the time. So when you get your Google Classroom set up, you show the kids how you want them to navigate your specific classroom, because the cool thing about Google Classroom is that it's definitely personal. It's definitely something that you can make personal. So, yeah, so you're the one that's going to have to do the training for the kids. I'm hoping that parents can have a workshop with some of this tech stuff. There's some great videos online, not necessarily for Google Classroom, but for some of the other apps that we've purchased as a district. I try to offer workshops to parents through the middle schools all the time. I usually get 3 or 4 parents out of all of the parents, but maybe like a quick video for them could be shared out with parents to show them how they can actually use Google Classroom with their kids. But as I said, the best practices is keeping it organized, keeping it simple, clean up that stream, make it so that when parents look over their kids' shoulders, they understand how to navigate it each week. Or also, you can make a video as a teacher and post that to Google Classroom to help the families navigate your page. But yeah, So that's it. And I noticed that there was a couple more comments on the stream, questions on the stream. I'm going to go check that out. So the first question is, have access to classes and assignments from, yes, you will. They'll always be there. The cool thing about the education feature is that we have like Google is now creating premium features. And as long as we have an education account, we have the premium account. So yes, your assignments will always be there. And as I said, you can copy a class altogether and all of those assignments are going to come over from last year's class. And Serena, can you send me an email? I'll look into that one for you. That's a bigger question that I don't know the answer right away. All right, so thank you everyone for attending. This was actually my first live stream and I hope it worked out well for you. There was just, as I said, the reason I did it this way was because there was just way too many people to do a Google Meet without it being super glitchy. So as I said, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm Carla Fitzgerald. I should have said that in the beginning. Just email me and I'll be happy to answer questions at any point in time. I usually check my email way too much. And if I don't get back to you, it's probably because I read it, I'm thinking about it, and probably will get back to you in a couple of days or sometimes a week. Sometimes it takes me a little while. But anyway, thank you guys. I know that was a lot. Please use the resources that I posted to the stream in this Google Classroom. They are going to be super helpful, especially that Google Classroom cheat sheet. There's also a student version too, which you can find on Casey's website. All right, have a great rest of your day. If any of you coming to any of my other classes today, I'll see you later. Probably a different background later today. All right, thanks.